This man lost his job, a casualty of his profound kindness. His boss dismissed him from his position, not for any professional failings or workplace misconduct, but because he had given away his last $100 to a young girl who was wandering despondently along the roadside. Just when he thought the day couldn't get any worse, an extravagant black luxury car pulled up beside him, its sleek exterior gleaming under the dim light. The window rolled down, and to his astonishment, there was the very same girl from the previous day, now smiling at him with a warmth that seemed to transcend the chilly air. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell to avoid missing any videos. "Hello, I'm James Miller," he began, his voice tinged with an earnest humility. "I work at a modest factory, just an ordinary laborer with no remarkable credentials. My journey began right after high school, and it's been a straightforward path since then. Today, my attention was drawn to a young girl who appeared utterly exhausted. She was wearing a high school uniform, but it looked out of place and worn as if it had seen better days. Even though the weather was biting and frigid, she was without a coat, and her knees were bruised and scraped, her clothes disheveled. What could have happened to her? My concern was immediately piqued, and I felt an overwhelming urge to understand her plight. At this hour, shouldn't she be safely at home? Is she unwell? Perhaps she was trying desperately to warm herself, rubbing her cold, aching limbs and occasionally blowing on her hands for a fleeting sense of relief. The sight tugged at my heartstrings, and I knew I couldn't just walk away. What if something terrible were to befall her out here? What is the right course of action? Driven by a surge of empathy, I decided to act. I entered a nearby coffee shop, where I purchased a selection of hot drinks and donuts, hoping they would bring her some comfort. As I returned to her, she looked up in surprise, as if she hadn't anticipated any help. "Good evening," I said softly. "Please, don't be alarmed. I mean you no harm. You appear to be quite cold, so I thought a little kindness might help. Here, would you like some hot lemon tea? That's freshly brewed." She accepted the cup tentatively, holding it to her cheek to savor its warmth. "Are you hungry? I imagine that might make the cold feel even more unbearable. How about trying a donut?" Unsure of what might appeal to a teenage girl, I selected a donut at random and offered it to her. She murmured a faint thank you and took the treat, her gratitude evident despite her weariness. "Heading home?" I inquired gently, but she shook her head and remained silent. My mind raced with possibilities. Had she fled her home? I didn't want to pry too deeply, but the concern gnawed at me. Then, as she lifted her skirt slightly, I saw her legs marred with painful, angry wounds. "What happened to your legs?" She quickly covered them, but the damage was clear. Did someone hurt you? Were you in a fight?" Her body tensed, and she remained resolutely mute. "And okay, I understand. If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine." "Yeah, it does all right. You don't have to say anything if you dare not comfortable. But staying out here might put you in danger. Have you thought about going home?" In a barely audible voice, she replied, "Don't know. I was thinking of going to my dad's place, which is far away." It dawned on me that she must be staying with her mother at the moment. I could sense this wasn't a situation that would resolve easily. "Why not give your dad a call? Maybe he can come and pick you up." "I don't have his number. I don't even have a cell phone," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. I was taken aback. How could a teenager not have a cell phone these days? "Do you know the address? Can you tell me where it is?" She nodded and handed me a small, crumpled piece of paper with an address I didn't address. "Intends this where you can meet him?" I asked, scrutinizing the address. She nodded again. It seemed far, and given the late hour, I wasn't sure how feasible it was. I pulled out my smartphone and searched for the address. To my surprise, it led to Rilk Group, a construction company. "Maybe this will help," I said, pulling out a note with a phone number I had found online. "Here is the number for Rilk Group. Call it tomorrow. They might be able to connect you with your dad. It looks like he might work for this construction company. I hope you get to see him soon." The girl's face lit up with a grateful smile. "Then thank you. You should find a place to stay tonight." I'll make a reservation for you at a nearby hotel. You'll be okay alone, won't you? I don't have any money, she replied hesitantly. I had little cash on me, but I did have a 100 bill tucked away. It might be enough to cover a night's stay. Don't worry about it. After a warm bath and a good night's sleep, you'll be in a better position to call your dad Dean. But I can pay you back, she protested. Don't worry about repaying me. The important thing is that you get to meet your dad. With that, I booked a room at a nearby hotel for Fangwan, which included breakfast. I explained the situation to the hotel staff, gave them the money, and asked them to let her make a phone call in the morning. After ensuring she was settled, I bid her farewell, hoping she would soon be reunited with her family. I had done a good deed, and despite my wallet being empty, helping the girl had filled me with a sense of fulfillment and warmth. But as I headed home, content with my actions, I received an unexpected call from the factory manager a few days later. "Potter, did you call for me?" I asked, my voice tinged with confusion. It was unusual for me to be summoned by the manager. I had never been called into his office before. I walked in, my nerves on edge. The manager, dressed in an opulent suit, seemed almost out of place in the modest office of our small factory. It's peculiar, I thought, that a manager of such a modest factory is dressed so formally and not in work clothes. He looked at me, his expression stern. "It's James, isn't it?" "Yes, sir. I am James Miller." And I replied, my voice wavering. "Is there something wrong? You don't need to come to work here anymore." I was taken aback. "I am sorry. I don't understand. What do you mean?" "It means you fired." The sudden announcement left me speechless. But why? Did I do something wrong? I don't remember making any mistakes that would warrant this. But we don't need a troublemaker like you here. I was bewildered. A troublemaker? What on earth are you talking about? It's come to our attention that you have connections with the mafia. I was stunned. What? That's absurd. I don't have any ties with the mafia. This is unbelievable. I was hired even though I only have a high school diploma, and now you dare accusing me of such a thing. The manager's accusation felt like a crushing blow. My mind raced, struggling to comprehend how a simple act of kindness had led to this unforeseen and unjust outcome. I was in utter disbelief. "This must be a mistake," I protested, my voice trembling. "I've never had any involvement with the mafia, nor have they ever bothered me." The manager's expression was cold and unyielding. "You can say whatever you want, but the fact is the mafia is reportedly looking into you. As a company, we cannot afford to employ someone under such scrutiny. Honestly, we never wanted to hire a high school graduate in the first place. The previous boss was the one who insisted on giving you a chance, saying things like, if someone is motivated, that is enough, even if they are just a high school graduate." It was a constant source of trouble. "Please, you have to believe me. I have no ties to the mafia. If I lose this job, I don't know how I'll manage to get by. I couldn't care less if you end up destitute or worse. That is not my concern. Why don't you ask the mafia for help? They might be able to assist you." "This is ridiculous. I have nothing to do with them. It must be some kind of misunderstanding. Please, I'm begging you, don't fire me." "No, the decision is final. We don't need any unwanted elements in a small factory like ours. When you apply for another job, make sure you are honest about your background." "I am not lying. I've never had any involvement with such people. Were you associating with delinquents in high school? Is that who's looking for me? That is not relevant. Mr. Potter, I assure you, I am telling the truth." "Enough of this. Leave now. I've instructed the office to pay you for today. Don't ever come back to our company." I kept insisting that this had to be a mistake, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. The manager looked at me with contemptuous disdain, as if I were nothing more than an inconvenience. With a dismissive gesture towards the door, he said. "Is that all you've got to say? I veered enough of your side. Now get out. I have other matters to attend to." It hit me with a heavy finality. This was truly the end. As I left his office, I was handed a thin envelope, my final paycheck from the company. I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of loss and disbelief. After 15 years of relentless dedication and hard work, was it all reduced to this mere flimsy envelope? I approached my colleagues to bid farewell. Their faces were etched with concern and frustration. "Why such a sudden departure? This is ridiculous," they said, their voices tinged with genuine regret. Despite their sympathy, they knew that nothing could change the manager's decision, and no one dared to challenge his authority for fear of facing the same fate. With a heavy heart, I offered them a parting "take care." Teen walked out of the gates of the company that had been my second home for so many years. My thoughts were a whirlwind of uncertainty and despair. What am I supposed to do now? I wondered, clutching the thin envelope. Being fired so abruptly, I only hope I can find another job before this meager sum runs out. My gaze was fixed on the ground, each step feeling heavier than the last. As I continued to walk, I noticed a black tire coming to a halt in my peripheral vision. I looked up, curious, to find a sleek black luxury car idling nearby. "Pin, what is this about?" I thought. "Pin must be someone important here for the factory. They should just hurry up and get inside." The driver, clad in gloves, exited the vehicle with an air of formality and opened the rear door with a respectful flourish. Out stepped a man dressed in an Imagine suit, accompanied by a young girl. The man turned to the girl and asked, "Is this the person?" I was stunned to see the girl from earlier. You day girl from that time." Then I exclaimed, my spirits lifting momentarily. "Did you manage to meet your dad?" "That was fantastic news. I'm relieved you were able to get to him safely." My recent woes were momentarily forgotten as I spoke to her. She beamed at me and with genuine warmth hugged me tightly. "Then thanks to you, my daughter could come to me safely. I am deeply grateful." "Do you dear her father?" I asked, surprised and pleased. "Then that is wonderful. I had been so worried about her but had no way of getting in touch with you after our last meeting. By the way, are you leaving the company early? Do you have somewhere to be?" "Oh, yes, something like that," he replied with a forced laugh. He was well-to-do, evident from his luxury car and impeccable attire. I felt out of place and was hesitant to admit to someone of his apparent stature that I had just been fired. I doubted I should even be conversing with him. "If you tear not in a rush, I'd like to express my gratitude. It is nearly lunchtime. Would you join me for a meal?" I hesitated, feeling unworthy of such a generous gesture. "No, thank you. I couldn't possibly accept your thanks for something I felt was just the right thing to do." "Come on, don't it be like that. If you have other plans, I won't press you. But if you dare free, I'd like to have you join me. I cannot let you go without properly thanking you. After all, you saved my daughter, and a mere thank you just doesn't seem enough." At first I declined, as there wasn't much pressing on my schedule after being fired. However, my dismal mood made it clear that finding another job might be a challenging endeavor. Considering this, I decided to insist I'll accept your kind offer. I agreed to join him, feeling that perhaps a bit of kindness and companionship was exactly what I needed at that moment. I climbed into the black luxury car, which whisked me away to a high-end restaurant. I glanced down at my work clothes, feeling acutely aware of how out of place I must look in such an opulent suckwikes. I had expected a more modest dining experience, perhaps a casual dinner, but the man just chuckled and reassured me. "Don't worry about it. Close down to eat the meal." With a gentle nudge, he encouraged me forward. The host, recognizing him, greeted us warmly without any fuss. The private room was a marvel of luxury and elegance, far beyond anything I had ever experienced. I marveled at the surroundings, thinking, wow, this is incredible, though it feels a bit overwhelming. Being in such a high-end place as a high school graduate felt almost surreal. Yet, as the drinks flowed and the conversation between the father and daughter filled the air with warmth, I began to feel more at ease. Their genuine smiles and the shared joy of their reunion were profoundly moving. The exquisite food and fine drinks were a delightful experience, and I savored every bite, appreciating what felt like a once-in-a-lifetime feast. Eventually, the man decided to introduce himself properly. "I should have started with this, but here it is who I am," he said with a knowing smile, handing me a business card that read Boss of Rilk Family. I was taken aback. "Oh my God, the mafia!" He nodded with a hint of amusement. "Yes, you dear correct. But remember, even a mafia boss is a parent. Thanks to you, I was able to reunite with my daughter. I'm deeply grateful." "Ah, it was my pleasure," he and I replied, still trying to process everything. "May I ask, though?" I'd been curious about why she was in such a dire situation that day. The man's expression grew somber as he began to explain. "Years ago, my daughter's mother and I divorced. She remarried not long after, and her new husband was the vice president of a small factory. When she passed away, his new wife moved in, and things changed drastically. The factory president, who had been kind to my daughter, also passed away, and the vice president took over. From that point on, my daughter was treated poorly, like an inconvenience. It is heartbreaking to think she was hurt so badly, especially in places that were not visible, like her back. I cannot imagine the suffering she endured. Her mother had given her an amulet before she passed away, a precious token with a heartfelt note. The message was simple yet profound. If she ever found herself in need, she should open the amulet and seek help. The lack of a phone number was a small oversight, but it became a critical issue. The girl had been desperately trying to reach out, but the journey was too long for a high school student on foot, and her wallet was soon empty. She was on the brink of freezing to death when I found her. The gravity of her situation was truly dire. The girl's mother's new husband was another matter entirely. The way he treated her was unforgivable. I vowed to seek retribution for the suffering he caused. I understand it may sound harsh coming from someone associated with the mafia, but I can't ignore the injustice. I appreciate your understanding. As for your abrupt departure from work, something must have gone awry, right? It might be unusual for me to ask this, especially given our brief acquaintance and my status, but I was fired just this morning. Fired. Yes, it was a wrongful accusation claiming I had connections with antisocial forces. I'm at a loss as to how such a thing came about. They informed me abruptly and dismissed me without any explanation. The man's expression turned serious. He summoned an executive who had been waiting nearby, and after a hushed exchange, the executive looked visibly distressed. "Tidiots," muttered before addressing me. "I am sorry. That was my colleague's mistake." "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, confusion etched on my face. "I wanted to thank you properly, so I had my team look into your situation. They discovered where you worked and wanted to verify the details. It seems they inadvertently mentioned our organization's name over the phone, which likely led to false accusations about your involvement with antisocial elements. It was an entire setup. I am truly sorry for the distress this has caused. I'll personally speak to the manager tomorrow, clarify the misunderstanding, and ensure that everything is rectified. I am grateful for the offer, but I'm okay for now." Although it's a bit of a lie to say I am completely fine, being in that situation would certainly trouble anyone. Returning to work under such a distrustful manager would only repeat the same old frustrations. I'd rather not be in an environment where I am not trusted. I understand. So, do you have any other prospects lined up? No, unfortunately, I don't have anything at the moment. It is a bit embarrassing to admit, but if I don't find something by the end of the month, I'll be in a difficult position. Despite that, I'm determined to maintain my dignity. That is admirable. In that case, how about I introduce you to a company owned by a friend of mine? They are completely legitimate and not associated with any criminal organizations. I believe they'd appreciate someone with your work ethic. I appreciate that, but I am hesitant. While I'd love to seize this opportunity, there is a part of me that questions whether I can trust it fully, given your connections. It's tough to shake the concern that there might be ties I can fully see. I see. If you ever find yourself in a tight spot, don't hesitate to call the number on my card. I'm here to help. The boss offered this with a reassuring smile. A month later, when I found myself still struggling to secure a job, I remembered his offer. I was contemplating accepting part-time work just to get by. I am in the mood for a drink, but I don't have anyone to share it with. Would you mind joining me? Don't worry about the cost. I'm simply seeking your company. Despite the unusual circumstances and his mafia connections, I was genuinely moved by his gesture. It was rare to encounter such kindness, and I accepted his invitation, curious about the unexpected camaraderie. If it is a bar, you don't expect much, do you? I said, a hint of skepticism in my voice. He chuckled. That's not true. I am offering to treat you, and here you are opting for a bar over a fancy restaurant. But honestly, I have never been to a fancy place like that. I get restless in such settings. I feel much more at ease in a casual bar. I see, I replied, appreciating his candidness. Guess I wasn't very considerate. But really, I am grateful. Holding a beer mug, I took a deep drink and sighed with relief. Thanks for this. So, have you found a job yet? He asked, genuinely concerned. Actually, no, not yet. As a high school graduate, it has been pretty tough. I've applied to several places, but no luck so far. That is unfortunate. I am sorry to hear that, he said sympathetically. By the way, would you mind helping me with something? My heart skipped a beat. Being asked for help by someone with mafia connections triggered a mix of unease and curiosity. I braced myself, wondering what could be involved. However, his next words were surprisingly far from my fears. Even though I am associated with the mafia, it doesn't mean we are involved in only nefarious activities. What I need is to seek justice for my daughter. I want to make sure the person who tormented her pays for his actions. Justice? I asked, intrigued. Yes, he confirmed, his voice laced with resolve. For the past month, I've been investigating who hurt my daughter, and it turns out it was the manager of the company you worked for. He described the manager in detail. He pretends to be the manager of that factory. The previous manager was hands-on, wearing work clothes and engaging with the employees. This new guy, however, only dons expensive suits and never even sets foot on the factory floor. He lives in a luxury residential area over an hour away by car, which explains his constant tardiness. My daughter was treated like a servant, barely fed, and forced to endure cruelty. I was taken aback by the intensity of his words. That is truly appalling. Indeed, he said, finishing his beer with a grim look. I am determined to get revenge for my daughter, but I want to handle it in a way that keeps me out of prison. And I'm not looking to create more trouble or risk losing time with her over a scumbag like him. We'll pursue this legally. His commitment to justice, despite his background, was both surprising and admirable. As we continued to talk, it became clear that his intentions were focused on righting a wrong rather than indulging in any form of personal vendetta. Legally? I asked, a mix of surprise and curiosity in my voice. Yes, that is why I set up a company, he confirmed. What kind of company? I asked. In the same field, he replied, though his tone suggested he found it a bit mundane. What I am itching to do is seize control of that factory. Seize control? I echoed, trying to wrap my head around the plan. Yeah, seize control. We'll take it over and oust the current manager. I have got the lowdown on him. He's neck deep in personal debt from gambling and other issues. To cover his tracks, he'd has been siphoning off the company's profits, he explained. Really? That is terrible, I said, appalled. Yes, that is why the staff's pay has taken a nosedive since the last manager passed away. The new manager has been lining his pockets with the company's money. I plan to boot him out and turn the factory into a place where people earn a fair wage. What will happen to him after he is out? I asked. He'll likely drown in debt. Plus, his wife is only with him for his wealth. When she finds out he is no longer the president, she'll probably leave him. Socially, I'll make sure no company will hire him, he said with a determined look. You can do that? I asked, amazed. Look, I am the boss of Rilke. Managing such things is well within my capability, he said confidently. I asked for your help because you were also a victim of his actions. I thought you might want some revenge too. Yes, I think all the employees would feel the same way once they know about this, I agreed. If this goes well, I plan to expand the factory and make you the manager, he proposed. Me manager? I repeated, shocked. Yes, I like you, and you understand how the factory works. You dear, the perfect person for the job. But I am just a high school graduate. That is impossible, I protested. That is nonsense. Back in the day, high school graduates used to become presidents. Education is important, but experience and hard work count for a lot. You've shown both, he reassured me. Hearing his words, I felt a surge of confidence. If you become the manager, I can rest easy leaving it in your hands. The first task will be taking over the factory. How about it? Are you in? He asked. It was a daunting offer, but one that was hard to refuse. Despite the uncertainties and my recent setback, the prospect of making a meaningful change and finally having a chance to prove myself was compelling. I understand. Count me in, I agreed, shaking his hand with a mix of resolve and anticipation. Good. Then tonight we'll drink to the future of the new company, he said with a smile. As we settled into the bar, the door swung open, and in walked someone I recognized. Well, look who it is, I said, seeing the former factory manager, Mr. Potter, approaching. Mr. Potter, it has been ages. Say, do we have a shared history? He looked puzzled for a moment. A former high school grad employee doesn't exactly stick in the memory. I continued, James Miller, that is who. Remember, the one you let go under some bogus Mafia Association claim. Potter's expression shifted uneasily. Oh, that is just a routine check by Rilke, and you used it as grounds to boot me out. A mere high school grad, right? Well, it wasn't quite like that anyway. No hard feelings. I am here with a proposition, I said smoothly. A proposition? Potter echoed, a mix of curiosity and caution in his voice. Yes, your products are of very high quality. That is something I know from working here for years. That is why I want to make a contract worth $7 million, I stated confidently. $7 million, he repeated, clearly taken aback. Yes. Please ensure the goods are delivered within 2 weeks. Upon confirmation of delivery, we'll transfer the $5 million. We'd greatly appreciate it. So, are you willing to proceed with this contract? I asked. Absolutely, he replied eagerly. I placed the contract on the table and requested his signature. Without bothering to read through it, he eagerly signed, his eyes widening at the mention of $7 million. I found his haste amusing, knowing his lack of organizational skills. Despite everything, seeing him sign without hesitation was a small satisfaction, a moment where everything came full circle. With the contract signed, Potter pushed his employees to their limits, demanding they work tirelessly to meet the deadline. Despite their efforts, a significant issue arose during the delivery phase. None of the delivery companies were willing to take on the job, clearly due to interference from Rilke. In desperation, Potter managed to find a truck, which was driven by a Rilke member. The cargo was loaded and the convoy set out. However, the journey was fraught with delays, including vehicle breakdowns, which caused the cargo to miss the deadline. Realizing the gravity of the situation, I promptly reached out to Potter. I returned to the factory to discuss the breach of contract. Potter, the cargo's tardiness has resulted in substantial losses for our company. According to the contract, if the cargo fails to reach its destination on time, you are liable for $7 million. We have fulfilled our shipping obligations as stipulated in the contract, I stated firmly. Potter, already under immense pressure, seemed increasingly distressed as he absorbed the news. As we wrap up today's video, we've witnessed a gripping tale of resilience, justice, and the unexpected turns life can take. From the struggles of a hard-working individual wrongfully dismissed from his job to the surprising intervention of a figure from the shadows, this story highlights the importance of standing up for oneself and seizing opportunities even in the face of adversity. What do you think you've learned from this story? How do you plan to apply these lessons in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear one key takeaway you'll bring into your own experiences. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more compelling stories and updates. Thanks for watching.